Hi guys, just a quick little presentation on a question that I was asked by some colleagues of mine who I fly with, the first officers, and just to explain especially what this term P factor stands for and how do we notice it and how do we take it into account when we are flying the aircraft. So the P stands for propeller, according to my knowledge, unless it stands for something else that I'm not sure, but it's to do with a factor that has to do with a propeller, so it's called a P factor. So what I've just drawn here is a simple and quick explanation on what happens when we take into account of the propeller factor or P factor. The P factor normally is noticeable during power changes. So when we are going from low to high power, for example during the takeoff, or when we are descending, coming in for the landing, or reducing our power, that's where we notice the P factor. So in the aircraft I operate currently, which by now all of you know who have been following these presentations of mine, I operate the turboprop, which is a Dash 8 Q400, and I'm pretty sure that any turboprop which has clockwise rotating propellers as seen from the rear, from the pilot's perspective, all right, the P factor pretty much applies to such aircraft. So for the Dash 8, if you view from the pilot's perspective or from the rear, both propellers will rotate in an in a clockwise sense, okay? And there are some other aircraft which have propellers called counter rotating propellers, where they both rotate, one rotates anti-clockwise, one rotates clockwise. In such aircraft, I think the P factor isn't applicable. So what does a P factor do? What actually is happening here is that from your notes from ATP, from commercial pilot license courses, from the YouTube channels that are there, from any other sources that are on the web, it's all over. This explanation is all over, so it's not nothing new. I'm just making it because as I keep saying that if I come to know something or somebody asks me a question, I feel it as an obligation to share with whoever is following my channel and also others whom you can pass this message to. So what's actually happening, if you recall, is that on the right side of the aircraft, meaning the engine number 2, there's a downgoing propeller which has a symmetrical upgoing propeller from the left side. Let's say this pen is my downgoing propeller on the right side, okay, and symmetrically there is a upgoing propeller on the left side, okay. The downgoing propeller is producing a bit more thrust compared to the upgoing propeller due to the angle of attack on the downgoing propeller being more than the upgoing propeller, the propeller blade I'm talking about here, okay. So there's a propeller blade, each side has got propeller, the propeller is a full thing, then there are propeller blades and they are symmetrically aligned to each other. So if we take into account that a downgoing blade on the right side and a symmetrical upgoing blade on the left side, the downgoing blade on the right side has a larger angle of attack, bites more air compared to the upgoing symmetrical propeller blade on the left hand side. Okay, what that is doing now is that it's tending to produce more thrust from the right side. So if we take this line as the longitudinal axis of the aircraft, okay, this black line here, since they are not rotating in the same sense, not counter-rotating, they are rotating in the same sense but not rotating in the opposite direction, the thrust vector now is shifted towards the side where there will be more thrust because of the downgoing propeller. So this red line has now shifted to the right, okay, and it will continue moving for as long as the power changes are in effect. The more power is applied, the further out this thrust vector is going to move to the right, and vice versa. So what that does is that it tends to yaw the aircraft to the left. Think of an engine failure, for example. Okay, if this one is producing less power, this is producing more power, the aircraft will yaw towards the dead side. Okay, for instance. So here, when you apply power, the thrust vector will start moving to the right, and you will feel a yaw to the left. So those of you who have paid attention during your takeoffs, for example, when you apply high power, okay, when you are rolling down the runway, you will be applying slightly right rudder. Okay, slightly right rudder. And this you want to know next time you are going to fly. It's sometimes inadvertent because you never even notice it, but because you are keeping the center line, you have to apply slightly right rudder, okay, to compensate for the yaw which is taking place to the left because of a thrust vector moving to the right. Okay, so having said that, now at least you do understand what the P factor is to do with the yawing moment to the left for aircrafts which have propellers rotating in the clockwise sense, like the Dash 8 Q400 and other aircrafts of that nature. Okay, now to further notice the P factor, if you look at your EADI on your PFD, all right, you have the slip skid indicator, this one here especially, the one which shows you the yaw. All right, so in this first figure, when things are balanced and the aircraft is in trim, which is what you want to do all the time, you'll keep the sky pointer in line with the slip skid indicator. Now let's say we reduce the power. You're coming in for, let's say you reduce the power, you're descending, okay, you reduce the power, or you want to slow down, okay, one of those two scenarios. All right, when you reduce the power, notice the slip skid indicator will move to the left. So why is that happening? It's happening because the thrust vector, when you reduce the power, is moving towards the left. Okay, it's moving that way. So now the aircraft's yaw will slightly be to the right. Okay, it will be slightly to the right. When the aircraft is going to the right, compensating for the reduced length of the thrust vector from the center, the slip skid indicator will go to the left because it's an inertial thing. All right, so it starts to move to the right, aircraft moves to the right, so it's offsetting the slip skid indicator to the left. Okay, and then you'll be compensating that by trimming the rudder trim to the left. So you bring this back into the center. Okay, you'll have a right yaw of the aircraft when you reduce power, so the slip skid indicator will go to the left. So you'll trim to the left to bring this back to the center. Right. When you apply power, what's going to happen? The thrust vector will start moving further out. Okay, it will be increasing. When that's happening, the yaw of the aircraft will be, as I said earlier, to the left. Okay, so again, because this is inertial, what's going to happen? The slip skid indicator will move to the right. So to compensate for that, you will now do a rudder trim to the right to bring it to the center. All right, so basically this is how the P factor works in aircraft. In jet aircraft, I don't think it's that much noticeable, but in propeller aircraft, it's quite noticeable. It's called the slipstream effect. Okay, that's one of the terms that I know of the P factor. Okay, that's basically my explanation for the P factor. I hope you understand the movement of thrust vector because of the symmetrical propeller blades and how their angle of attack is changing as one is going down, the other is going up, and how the thrust vector moves back and forth depending on the power settings that we are applying to the aircraft. And that is also represented by the sky pointer, rather the slip skid indicator under the sky pointer on the EADI, telling you what is happening. Okay, next time you go flying, observe this, and I'm pretty sure that you'll understand this fact a bit more better. Until the next time, thank you so much for all the supports and all the comments that you are giving, and also fly safe all the time, and let's keep sharing knowledge as we get it. Thank you, and have a good one.